I need to ask you a question that I've been asking myself. But first, I need to tell you a story. Hey, I'm Jeremy. Welcome back to my porch. I help worshipers like you get unstuck from the mess of life and develop lifestyles of prayer and worship. Because the Lord knows we need it. At any rate. So a couple of years ago, I was in Zimbabwe on a missions trip. And the team I was with went to visit another family that owned and operated a farm. It was seemingly in the middle of nowhere. It took us maybe an hour or two, I can't remember, to get from where we were staying to this farm. The family graciously hosted us, and we had a great time. We celebrated together with some local friends of theirs over New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And we worshiped together. We shared testimonies, and it was a really good time. It was a very interesting experience. It was quite surreal for me because I literally felt like I was in the middle of nowhere. I already was unfamiliar with the country of Zimbabwe. The first time I'd ever stepped foot on African soil, and then in the middle of that, being in the middle of a country that, again, would just felt like in the middle of nowhere. So it really felt like almost like it wasn't happening. But here I was in this strange environment with people I didn't know. And we went to sleep that night, and I couldn't sleep. And the Lord got me up, and I began to pray. And as I was praying, I felt led to begin praying for the family. And shortly thereafter, I'm pacing around, and everybody else is asleep. I'm pacing in the middle of the night and praying and talking to the Lord. And I began to feel like I started to engage what seemed like spiritual warfare. I can't really explain it, but I just kind of followed the leading of the Spirit and prayed what I felt led to pray. And as I was praying, I began to get pictures and thoughts. And it seemed like the Lord was talking to me, and He was sharing with me specific details about things spiritually and naturally that were going on in and around this house and with this family. It was quite an interesting thing, and I kept asking Him what He wanted me to do with that, and it certainly seemed at one point like I was being given some kind of prophetic utterance or word for this family, for these people, that I did not know what to do with, because some of it was very personal. And I thought, how in the world am I going to address complete strangers at this point, acquaintances, halfway around the world from where I live, in a culture that I don't know or even understand, and actually share some of what I was getting as I prayed? And so I wrestled with God about this for quite a while. But the next morning, early in the morning, I was up, and I found myself sitting at a table. I was writing in my journal and having more prayer time, and the Lord was speaking to me about my own journey at that time as well. Well, the gentleman of the house, the husband, father, farm owner, he came by and says, "Hey, Jeremy, why don't you come with me? I've got to go check on things around the farm, and I'd love to chat with you." So you see, I had actually given a brief version of my testimony to these folks the night before, and he wanted to know a little more about what I shared. So we hopped in his truck and started to make the rounds, and I got a tour of the farm. And see, all this time I had been sort of, again, wrestling with the Lord and praying, okay, God, how in the world, if I share these things with these people, or with this man, how do I do that? I think I said to God, you're going to have to open the door. Like, you're going to have to make it clear that I'm supposed to share these things. You know, I don't take it lightly if God ever says anything to me about sharing with another person. I just don't take that lightly. So here we are making the rounds in his truck around the farm. He's giving me a tour, and he begins to talk to me and ask me questions. And I can't really explain to you how this happened, but as we spoke, the Lord began to open doors where he would say things that would be a clear inroad for me to share with him what I had received in prayer. And so I did. I began to share with him the details of what I had received from the Lord as I prayed for he and his family and his farm in the middle of the night before. The point of the story is that what I did to speak to this man was such a risk for me. It was so far outside of my comfort zone. But I remember that as I wrestled with God in the night about this, what I would share and how I would share it, and whether or not I would say anything at all, as I wrestled with the Lord on that, I came to a conclusion. And my conclusion was, if what I was receiving from the Lord in prayer was for this man and his family, that I didn't come halfway around the world to waste that opportunity, to miss what might happen if I actually obeyed the voice of the Holy Spirit. It wasn't worth walking away and wondering for the rest of my life what would have happened if I had shared what God told me to share. So the question I've been asking myself lately, and the question I want to ask you, is if you aren't doing everything that God has called you to do in your life, why in the world not? Why aren't you doing what God has said to do? Because listen, what do you have to lose? Paul said he counted everything as loss compared to the surpassing greatness of knowing Jesus. I don't want to stretch that too far, but knowing Jesus is to know the King of the kingdom that will reign for eternity, the one that you're going to be a part of. So if you know that and believe it, and you know that you are here because of him and called to establish his kingdom in the earth, why in the world would you not do everything that he was telling you to do? Now, I know that one of the answers to that question is fear. All of us have fear about something, and particularly when it comes to obeying the Holy Spirit in these matters. But I've been asking myself this question: why am I wasting any time with fear? Why am I wasting any time being worried about anything and not doing exactly what God said to do? I don't know if that hits you the way it hits me right now, but I feel increasingly like time is short and there just isn't much left. There just isn't much left. I say that because I believe he's coming soon. I don't say that for any other reason. But what are we doing? What are we doing with our time? What are we doing with our life if we're wasting it on anything other than answering the call of God? It's making less and less sense to me, and I hope it begins to make less sense to you, to sit in comfort and to waste time pursuing and chasing things that don't matter. And listen, nothing matters but Jesus. Nothing matters but Jesus, because when you die, you're going to face him and he'll be all that matters. And in his eternal kingdom, he will be at the center of it all. He is now. The question is, do you see it? And are you willing, do you have a desire to step outside of your comfort zone and to do everything that God is telling you to do? I'm not sure I do, but I'm asking myself that question almost daily. So why don't you join me and get out of your comfort zone and get off your couch and turn off the TV and put down the phone and stop scrolling, start listening, and start doing. And one of the places that I've been stepping out of my comfort zone is in writing this book that I'm hoping to release and publish in the next few months here in the spring of 2024. It's called Rebuild the Ruins, and it is about rebuilding the ruins of your life, how to fix your foundation, build your spiritual house, and transform your generations. So I hope you'll give me a follow, subscribe, share, whatever. But show up here for a minute. Stick around and read my book.